For. My name is Prasad Kadambi, and I'm chair of RP3C. The purpose of RP3C is to help modernize ANS standards. Modernization has come to mean that risk-informed, performance-based methods are employed to overcome the difficulties that we all know about with purely deterministic and prescriptive methods. We've been calling these methods RIPB approaches. There's a lot of guidance available on RIPB approaches, but most people have not had reason to become familiar with the guidance because the conventional approaches still dominate most of the things that we do, including standards development. RP3C initiated these community of practice webinars on RIPB to enable practitioners of these approaches to share knowledge and experience. We had the first of these webinars in February, and the subject was employing a systems engineering framework for enabling use of RIPB methods. Then in March, we had a session that covered an example description of the types of issues encountered by ANS working groups as they revise standards. So in March, we covered the ANS standard ANS 221, which is related to meteorological effects on the design of ultimate heat sinks. Today, I'm going to present on a subject that is part of my own work when I served with the NRC staff. I framed the presentation as a question regarding the reactor oversight process. The question is the reactor oversight process risk-informed and performance-based? The NRC has been using the ROP process for operating reactors for about the past 20 years. This question of the reactor oversight process being RIPB is relevant to standards because if the answer is yes, that it is risk-informed performance-based, then we would have about 20 years of experience from which we can draw lessons as we tackle RIPB issues more generally, especially in standards. After all, standards are meant to codify best practices, and we need a framework in which we can incorporate the lessons from such practices. So what I'd like to do is just show you, what the outline for today's session is. Basically, what is the reactor oversight process? How is it relevant to RIPB methods and advanced reactor standards? The current state of RIPB methods as I see it, the current state of advanced reactor standards. I'll talk a bit about this document, NUREG BR 0303, which is, the title is Guidance for Performance-Based Regulation, and some of the follow-on work. And we'll think about modernized ANS standards within a systems engineering framework, and then summarize. So what is ROP? ROP is the monitoring program to assure safety of US operating nuclear power plants. What's significant is that every day, every plant's operating data is examined to address this question. is this plant adequately protecting public health and safety? Hence, ROP can be seen as a framework to make decisions regarding adequate safety. So it was developed 20 years ago, but adequate safety decisions have been, have been made for the past 50 years. So it's worth looking at, what does ROP represent? And because it was developed for operating reactors, is there something about ROP that restricts its use only for large light water reactors in operating mode? So when the ROP was developed, it was because of commission direction that something needed to be done to improve on the system that existed previously. And I want to point out that, to some extent, I see the issues that we at NRC at that time faced with the existing system have, in my mind, similarities to what we face with current ANS standards. So the previous system was called the Systematic Assessment of Licensee Performance, and that's what was used for oversight and monitoring. SALP had many issues. At that time, there were 5 regions, now there are 4, but without getting into details, the point is that the commission felt that there was need for improvement and directed the staff to find a better way. The staff issued a commission paper, SECI 99007, recommendations for ROP improvements, which the commission approved. The point is that it has been used for the past 20 years after the commission approved it, because although it is a radical departure from the prior system, it has certainly improved the way that plants are regulated in the operating mode. Just want to point out that this ROP structure was adopted as the basis for this guidance that was developed. In full disclosure, I'm the author of this guidance for performance-based regulation, and it was issued in 2002. So this shows the structure of the reactor oversight process as it currently exists. I guess the key points to point out are that the top level goal is public health and safety from operating nuclear reactors. It is decomposed into 3 strategic performance areas: reactor safety, radiation safety, and safeguards. That is further decomposed into what are called cornerstones of safety. There are 7 of them: initiating events, mitigation systems, barrier integrity, emergency preparedness, public radiation safety and occupational radiation safety, and physical protection. And there are cross-cutting issues: human performance, safety conscious work environment, and problem identification and resolution processes. So this, in RIPB terminology, the way it is developed in the performance-based guidance can be seen as an objectives hierarchy. So an objectives hierarchy is a way to structure performance objectives. And over here, what I've tried to show is that these performance objectives can be sort of said to belong to fundamental objectives and means objectives. That the thing I would also like to point out is that if you look at the cornerstones of safety and also the other fundamental objectives up at the top, there's nothing in there that is specifically related to light water reactor technologies alone. So to a large extent, I believe the answer to the question, is there something about the ROP that is unique to light water reactors, is no. You know, this is basically a technology inclusive framework. So to me, what is key in relating this ROP structure to ANS standards is that it can be useful to avoid unnecessary requirements. Avoiding unnecessary requirements is an important aspect of reducing costs of nuclear technology. Now, if we had an NRC approved decision-making framework that provides a basis for requirements management, and I'll go further into the connection between requirements management and standards, then I think what we can do is use this, at least the structure, as a basis for adopting some of the approved NRC decisions, as well as the processes and the lessons learned from the ROP experience. And, basically I see our role in RP3C as being, helping our consensus committees use requirements management in the ANS standards. So one way to look at the RIPB, approaches, methods is, this is a picture that you see over here that was presented at a standards forum. And it shows that you can view risk-informed and performance-based in two ordinates. Performance-based and prescriptive being in one ordinate, and deterministic and risk-informed on the other ordinate. So, what we face in taking advantage of RIPB methods, as I see it, is, where a lot of things that we do these days are in the upper left quadrant, we want to move to the lower right quadrant. Now, it has become evident to me from my vantage point at RP3C that there are many different perspectives regarding the elements of RIPB and the relationship between them. Now, RP3C itself is limited in what we can do, but among the things that we can do is at least address an important aspect of the issues having to do with terminology. And, in fact, this has been a long-standing issue, and the ANS, the NRC addressed it, I believe, to good effect in a white paper that was issued in the late 1990s. This is the white paper on risk-informed and performance-based regulation, SECI 98-144. So, in my mind, what it shows are the outcome attributes from achieving performance objectives. And so it represents something that was issued at the highest levels of decision making, and therefore can be put to good use for our standards also. The other thing I want to point out about terminology is, in fact, RP3C has a group that's looking into this, and Ralph Hill is a member of that, and he has interacted with NRC, and we are hoping that there will be some more that we can do to clarify the issue of terminology. Right now, where we are is that we recognize that there are differences in terminology, but basically, if we have a common understanding of the meaning, then that's where we should begin. So, in terms of requirements management, this is a figure from what we covered in the February session, and it shows how, again, you can see requirements management as something part of a larger structure where you begin with defining the mission clearly, and go through the functional analysis, and you derive the requirements in order to fulfill the mission. So as far as the current state of advanced reactor standards, in my view, we have been essentially stalled for a number of years now. I think industry is slowly recognizing the role and importance of consensus standards, and hopefully recognizing. I hope industry recognizes that ANS and ASME are the two standards developing organizations that are trying to do something about it. But NEI 1903, which is a document developed to highlight what are the most urgent standards needed, is not going to be of much use unless people in decision making, with decision making authority like DOE, pay attention to what is needed. We in RP3C have not been as successful as we'd like to be. And, we appreciate what NRC has been doing to promote standards, but there too, we've had limited success. So, NUREC BR 0303 was issued in 2002, and it has not been really put into much practice up to now. And, I believe that part of the reason is that RIPB is not recognized as being an integrating approach. RIPB, I believe, should not be seen as RI plus PB, but it has to be seen as something that brings the two together, something along the lines of that figure I showed with performance-based and risk-informed being in two different ordinates. In this slide, I'm just trying to point out some of the the work that has been done, you know, and the fact is that a lot of these, the work that has been done, including with Reg Guide 1174, which is quite well known, and the work of a task force that was put together after the Fukushima event on risk management approaches, New Reg 2150. You know, all these have not really contributed to making as much progress on RIPB as is possible, I think. To some extent, I think this is because you know, these things get into silos, and you know, there are communication problems in these siloed processes. So as far as the ROP and the guidance is concerned, the fact is that you know, when the ROP was put up to the commission, you know, New Reg BR 0303 was not available, and you know, the ROP was then seen and continues to be seen as being risk informed, and you know, and therefore, as has happened over the past 20 years, you know, there's an emphasis on risk informed to the detriment of performance based. From what I understand, you know, ROP has, you know, has, some people think it has weaknesses in the area of significance determination process. And the point I would like to make is that, you know, that's where using formal performance-based approaches may be able to help improve the ROP. But you know, in RP3C, we've been trying to just keep abreast of what's happening there, and you know, apply the lessons learned to the working group efforts. So what we found is that it's much easier to promote some of these efforts if we do have a larger framework that you know, provides some consistency and coherence among all the structures and processes. And the systems engineering framework is, I think, ideally suited for this, especially if standards are seen as a way of requirements management. Right now, ANS 30.1 on reactor design and an ASME effort on the plant systems design code are two efforts that I believe are going to be you know, sort of blazing the trail for systems engineering practices in standards. So to summarize, although ROP is not fully risk-informed performance-based, fact is that it can be, and it can be very useful for integrated safety decision making. Just want to point out that you know, the way it is employed, a whole plant is given a color-coded grade. And consistent with RIPB, the operator has flexibility to show that the performance objectives of the cornerstones are met. And again, consistent with the performance-based approaches where the focus is on margins, you know, if there is a non-conformance, the effort then moves to showing that there is enough margin that the deviation from compliance is of a green category where it doesn't have much safety significance. So along these lines, there is 20 years of experience that we can use if we are able to get a consensus around the value of ROP for standards. So that is my presentation, and I invite questions, suggestions, anything that you have to say.
Thank you, Prasad. I have not received any questions through the Q&A feature. I don't know if anyone might want to just pipe up and ask a question. I think everyone should be able to talk if they unmute.
Unmuted. Yeah.
This is Ralph. May I speak?
Yep.
Yeah, please.
Relating back to 30.1 and the plant systems design standard that we're developing within ASME. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm on both of those committees. I'm working with Mark Lynn on 30.1 and working very carefully to integrate that, make sure that the plant systems design is the, I'm getting an echo, but make plant systems design is the, is actually implementing 30.1 consistent with it. But both of those are focused on design. And I had thought about the relationship to reviews of operating plants until this session. And I'm thinking there's an opportunity there in plant systems design in the front matter. I've got a holding spot to talk about how does risk-informed performance-based apply within the context of our standard. And I haven't started to write anything about that yet, but I'm thinking about it. And all of this helps me. But in that context with the reactor oversight process, I'm thinking, how do those categories, how do those initial performance-based criteria that the plants are being evaluated to, how do they get established? And if we're designing a brand new plant with 30.1 plant systems design, and we're establishing some performance criteria from that, how do we link that together with 30.1? Because right now it seems like they're two independent activities. For example, plant systems design, our context is to actually be able to use evaluation, probably Monte Carlo simulation, to take deterministic reliability information with reliability information on a system. Part of the systems we'll design using probabilistic design. And when we use the probabilistic design, we'll have more we'll have information reliability based on the components of the Windows system. So if we can determine, we plan to combine those, establish a process in the standard to combine those, to be able to come up with a system reliability, and from a system reliability, be able to have a plant reliability. So the first time, we'll be able to quantify the reliability of the plant. And the context is also that the PRA is going to be very heavily involved in that, and the PRA evolves with the life cycle of the plant. So the analysis, evaluations, the risk summary we have for the plant can also continue to the life cycle of the plant. But how do we tie those two together? Because ROP seems distinct from design. That's my comment.
Well, Ralph, I thank you for raising this issue. Now, you very recently joined RP3C, but within RP3C for the past couple of meetings, I've been trying to say that one of the things that we ought to do in standards is to think about design, construction, and operation as a continuum, where you have performance objectives that can be seen in each of these contexts, but then there is a continuity between them, and this systems engineering framework is in fact very useful to do that. So you raise a good question, and I believe that it's the sort of thing that we can do between the ASME efforts and the ANS efforts. So anybody else have comments on that or any other matter?
Hi, Prasad. This is Marcia. I was wondering if you're aware of any efforts on NRC's part to update those documents or address RIPB and other documents, standards.
Well, let's see. Bill Reckley, are you on by any chance? Maybe he wasn't able to join. As I understand it, there isn't any effort to update, New Reg BRO 303. It was referenced most recently in the, as part of the effort to look at the containment issue and but anyway, I think the short answer to your question is not that I'm aware of. I don't know if anybody else is aware of that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Well, I do hope that everybody finds our sessions to be useful from a community of practice standpoint. The next session that we expect to have is on May 29th at 3 p.m. Eastern. I believe we have somebody in line to provide a presentation for that, and it will, I hope, be one of the developers of that are quite active in the field. And if anybody else has suggestions or would like to come forward to offer a presentation, I would appreciate it very much. And Kent Welter and I are the ones who are putting these things together. So either one of us would be a good contact point. And on this last slide, it shows some of the resources available to people. And all these slides will be going up into the ANS website under standards. And, under standards, you will see a tab for RP3C. And we will have all the slides up on there. And again, you're welcome to, offer comments or suggestions from there also. So,
Prasad, this is Ralph. Suggestion would be that we ask Mark Lynn to give us a presentation on 30.1 and in regards to the RIPB and systems engineering, et cetera. And I would be willing to follow that with what we're doing for the ASME plant systems design, including some of the information I already shared on this call.
Well, fantastic, Ralph, because it's exactly the sort of thing that Kent Welter and I were talking about yesterday. In fact, the thing is that, in June, we are going to have an RP3C meeting that is going to be virtual because of the coronavirus issues. And so, I was hoping that at that point, where we have participation, I hope from you and Mark, and, we'd be able to establish that. Anyway, Kent and I were hoping that the June presentation would be from Mark, and certainly one of the follow-on presentations can be the, the plan design standard. So,
and two other thoughts, Prasad. Section 3, Section 11, ASME Section 11 for in-service inspection, recently issued a Division 2 for the Reliability Integrity Management, which we call RIM for short. And that also is a life cycle, bridging the life cycle with risk-informed designing to target reliabilities. And it's probably good for this group to have some knowledge of what's going on there.
Sure. Yeah, I fully agree. I think we will invite them, and I'm also very much interested in how the various developers are getting involved in these standards efforts, because hopefully they are going to be very interested in how these standards actually get developed and progress, because once it gets developed, then it gets into a process of NRC endorsement, and they may not be able to influence it to the same extent as if they get involved early on. So I do hope that whoever is participating from the developer community will get involved in those standards, and please help us understand what you're doing, by coming on to our sessions on the community of practice.
One final item I would suggest is, as I start to develop for the plant system design standard, the section where we talk about risk-informed performance-based, I would hope I could reach out to the working group that we've already got within ANS to help me develop that.
Sure. I mean, that's, again, I think you'll be interacting primarily with RP3C, and you are a member of RP3C. So yeah, we will continue to work together on this route. Okay. Well, I guess if there are no further comments or questions, I thank you all for joining us on this, and look forward to letting you know the details on the next session. Again, thank you very much. Pat?
Yep. I'd also like to say a thank you to everyone that participated today. If you are not able to find the slides that I'll be posting later on today, you can always drop me an email. I'll be happy to forward them to you. Thank you very much, and you have a great weekend.
Okay, everybody stay safe and be well.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Prasad.
You're welcome, everybody.